Hey everyone, I hope you're having a lovely Friday evening. I'm Geeta here again, and with me today I have one of my mentors, um, someone I
Somebody else is
studied
on
with
here?
about 15 years ago. Yes, it's you. And I have online with me Steve Linder. He's an amazing genius in neurostrategies and spiral dynamics, and the reason why I wanted to have a conversation with Steve tonight was because things have been moving really fast this week. And I can't even remember what last week was about. I can't even remember what I did 2 weeks ago. It seems so far behind. And one of the things that I've seen in myself, but I've seen in other people, are behaviors that are actually extremes. And the extremes are people hoarding and buying up the most ridiculous things to
Oh yeah.
stockpile, to the other side of people really being so compassionate about people in their community. And we're seeing opposites. And I wanted to bring Steve on tonight because he really is a guru of this stuff in understanding human behavior and kind of talking to us about what's really going on and how can we manage our state in this time of uncertainty so that we can actually come out stronger, whether it's in 4 weeks time, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whenever it is. Yeah, we don't know,
Or
right?
longer, right?
A little longer, whenever it is that we come out of this, that we actually come out stronger and wiser, to probably a kind of world that we actually do not know. So, Steve, how about you adding a few things to that?
Yeah. Oh, from an intro perspective, or do you want from where we are and where we're going?
Yeah, where we are, where we're going, and then
Yeah.
you can give your perspective on it as well.
So where we are, we really it's been the perfect storm of a number of different factors. Two primary ones, um, at least from the U.S. perspective.
Hmm.
It's the not only the virus scare and so on, but also it's obviously the drop in the market. And
Yeah.
so that's the one that was why we couldn't predict the virus, the virus situation, or COVID-19, or whatever we're calling it in whatever country. What we could predict though was that the U.S. market, which now our economies are so intertwined, was
Hmm.
so on that edge that it was needing basically anything could have set it off. Whether it was Brexit, whether it's like back in the old days of when Greece, was having financial difficulties, or
Hmm.
Iceland went underwater, or what have you. And it's kind of, I'll actually draw this over here. Some of you may remember this is what we call the big tick. Actually, I think it was all my friends over in England that named it the big tick, and it kind of stuck. But in a nutshell, when we're at these different points along our thinking systems, or along our
Hmm.
experience of life, at one point, so we'll call it over here, segment A, this is where everything's fine, everything's good. Our identity is tied oftentimes to this. This is, yeah, I am good, i.e.,
Hmm.
our beliefs about ourselves and what's going on in the outside world. At point B over here, something happens where, again, whether natural, unnatural, sometimes these come in cycles depending on the industries and so on. And people will go down here into segment C, which is oftentimes massive pain for them,
Hmm.
until they get to a point where they either exhaust themselves, or they say, "Oh my gosh, it can't get any worse." Or for those of you who've been in the Robbins environment, there's a great process that Tony uses. Won't go into too much detail, but sometimes we'll say it scares the dickens out of you. Where
Hmm.
the question is asked, is this who you really are? The answer is
Hmm.
usually no. If in terms of if it's something like negative behaviors or beliefs or what have you, no, that's not who I am. And then people will go up in segment E over here. They get up to segment F, where they'll think, okay, great, I'm basically back to quote normal again. And that's
Hmm.
what most people right now, most people, they just want to get back to normal. They don't want to think better. They don't want to, they're not focusing on how can I use this for good. I mean, some people are, obviously you and, people that we know, they're just like, I want to go back to where I'm comfortable, because
Hmm.
something screwed up my comfortableness in terms of this segment B, in terms of the virus in this case. It could have been anything. It could have been any of our nutcase dictators around the world. It could have been, well, I'll leave it around at that. Um, And so at point F, most people right now, they're not really looking at segment G or point H. The reason why I bring this up is whenever you have, if your identity is tied right here, any deviation from your identity is going to create energy, not create stress. Although if you're taking notes, if you don't have a plan for it, even when you're feeling great, people will get stressed because, oh my gosh, this may not last. It may not last. And so what happens here, my pen, I just broke my pens out of my case. I'm praying all these work. Yes, they do. Good. So that when they go into stress and we deviate from our identity, if we deviate in pain, the pain is, oh my gosh, this isn't what I'm used to. This is so beneath me. I can't believe I'm behaving this way. I can't believe I just, beat up 3 old ladies to get their toilet paper, things like that. Or when things are going great, some people are going, oh my gosh, this is too much to be too good to be true. I can't believe it. What they're really saying is this is too good to be true with my identity. So what's really, I think, screwing up people right now is not screwing up permanently, but what's screwing with or messing with our thinking systems is our identity's on the line. I thought I was safe. I thought my family was safe. My business was safe. The last few days, I've written so many letters to companies, customers, to their team. Today I was telling somebody, if they have to downsize, here's how you frame it to your team so they realize it's not them, it's math. If there's no revenue comes through. They need to understand the life cycle and how can we help you in the process so that you'll want to come back. Point being, this doesn't last forever. It seems like it, but in reality, this is really just our experience of life. We always are going to have challenges. Granted, this one is a big one, and we will get over it. So part of the thing that we want to do, we'll talk about a little bit later on, is imagine, okay, let's say, 10 years from now, it should be over well before that, but let's say 10 years from now, when you look back, this is what's called a temporal shift. When you look back going, man, what was that like? How did we get through that? What did we do? How are we a better person because of it? What that's going to do when we start to look at our future identity up here. My writing skills are clearly not showing up well on the computer. They're perfect here, but it's getting lost in translation. When we look back, we're going to realize that we're actually better because of it. So what we can do is start to look and say, okay, what can we, if we look back, how did we do it? We can look at the steps and the strategies. How did we do two things? Number one, how did we get out of the pain? That's what most people are clamoring for right now. A lot of people, I was kind of joking with somebody before, there's a slang term in the States, I don't know if they have it over in England or not, is when people get upset, they get real butthurt. Well, that must be caused by this virus because toilet paper is gone. I literally was at our Home Depot, which I think like H&Q or Bunnings, depending on where in the world you are. And I was talking to my wholesaler there, and I said, no toilet paper here, huh? And they're like, nope, they take that. Now they're even taking the paper towels. So just get the visual on that one for people. And the point being, why are people doing this? Why are they going? Literally, I went down to the local supermarket, and the shelves from the cold medicine, the shelves are gone from everything from like cold medicine down to like the hemorrhoid cream. I mean, it's like the most bizarre stuff. What are they doing? What they're really trying to do is they're trying to get back to a sense of certainty. Why do people, if you've been around me long enough, when people are cutting, sometimes they're cutting for show. Some people are literally, people on Facebook are showing, look how many rolls, I have my entire basement filled with toilet paper. It's ready for Crapageddon to come. Some people, when they cut though, they cut why? Because their nervous system relabels the sensory input as pleasure because they feel they have no control in their life. And so you look at the people historically that are right now, that are hoarding. These are folks, in my belief, and in working with a lot of them over the years, that feel I don't have any control over the outside world. I can control them when I do number two and how I do it. And I know I could do that. The world could be falling apart. And if the world blows up while I'm sitting on the John or Jane or whatever, so be it. This is where we've almost evolved to. And as you know, under stress, we resort back to our earliest thinking systems. And I think that is largely where we are in terms of moving along the spiral. And
Yeah. So really, because that's so beautifully explained with that diagram. How can we forget that? The thing is, what's happening now is actually happening in mass, as opposed to in the past. It really has been. It has been in smaller amounts. It has been individuals. Well, now we see it in mass. So, what would be interesting, you've just mentioned there, is that in times of stress, we drop to probably a lower level of consciousness, right?
Well, we also look for social proof. We look. It's what's that term? FOMO. Fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, I've got enough toilet paper. And when I went down to the store, I couldn't help but look. And I'll tell you, if it's like, I don't know how long this is going to last. And the bizarre part is, one of my clients called me. She owns a paper manufacturing, a friend of mine, a paper manufacturing mill type of thing. And she said, "Do you need any toilet paper? We manufacture it for all the major brands." I'm like, oh. And literally the need of, oh my gosh, why? Because I know I can just simply go across the street and get some. Point being is that when we only feel we have one way on how to meet our needs, it guarantees stress. People, the hoarding right now is the symptom of stress, which is a symptom of them believing they can't. Is it okay if I draw another thing real quickly?
Yeah, please go for it.
It's kind of where, some of you past grads may remember this, it's kind of where if you're at point A in life and here's point B, whenever I go into my clients, I'll say, great, show me your business model. How do you guys do your thing or make your widget or whatever? And they say, we do this, that. I'll say, great, do it again. Point being, by the time I'm done with them, they've identified a bunch of other ways on how to do it. When you only have one way on how to do it, you have just stress, because if something impedes that, the virus is essentially a block on, imagine these are gone, the virus is a block there. People are like, oh my gosh, and we can what? We can either fight it or blame, or we can be resourceful and say, okay, that's not working. What we need to do is go and do something else. That's not working. Okay, great. Go do another plan. But ultimately reminding ourselves of, number one, the outcome, but more trying to multitask here as a guy. More importantly, the purpose. More purposefully, but more important, the purpose. What's our reason why? When we look at the last financial crisis, 2008, I was working with a bunch of CEOs, and their industry, it was a recession-proof industry, but their mindset was just like, oh my gosh, and we've got to start cutting our team and doing this and doing that. Nothing hit their financials yet. And we'll call this guy John. I said, John, and if John's watching, you remember this. I said, it's like you and your buddies, John, in your little industry, you guys are in a pool. And the pool is full of water. And what you're doing here is you're laughing and screaming, having a great time with your little pool floaties on. Those are little orange pool floaties on their arms like that little kids have. And you have the old pop cans or soda cans where, remember, you used to take the lid off and you used to throw it away, this little sharp little piece. You guys are throwing all that debris with basically wasteful thinking systems, accounting systems, basically lost opportunities. You're throwing the castaways of your business kind of into the environment, into your business. You're not really managing it because there's so much water in the economy, especially the 2005, 2006, and 2007. And if you watched or read the book, The Fourth Turning, we were in summertime and springtime. Everything was great. The problem is when the water level dropped, where there's not as much water, and here they are, and they're going, help, 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 help. There's all this blood in the water, and little sharks show up. They're like, who's doing this to me? And they start to blame, and again, especially when I hear, regardless of political affiliation, when I hear, oh, it's the Chinese fault. It started there. It's their fault. That's nonsense. And in the States, now we have, Chinese Americans that are being, maligned and being accosted by people that have no outside thinking or very little self-reflection because they happen to be Chinese. It has nothing to do with their ethnic background. This started somewhere in the world. Granted, it could have been dealt with earlier, whatever, better and so on. It could have been dealt with earlier in other places. But most people right now, when you're focusing on blaming, You're not focusing on what's really happening. What's really happening, a lot of businesses had no backup plan. A lot of businesses got dink, got dinked off the edge of the abyss here by some outside factor. This stuff happens. But think about the last few years, the longest bull market in recent history. I think, if any, years and years. But nobody had a backup plan. But it's like when you get in your car. Do you drive over there in England?
Yep.
We're on the wrong side. Yeah, okay. Anyways, and when you get in the car, the first thing you do is you put on your what?
Seatbelt.
Your seatbelt. How many times have you needed the seatbelt to actually save your life in a car crash?
Touch wood, none.
Right. But we still do it anyway. Same thing with business. Same thing in life. Same people with their finances. It's like what you do is when you're going. Remember, here's a little adaptation of that. Having multiple options. You want to have multiple options before the crisis hits. Right now, people think that we're in the worst of it. I don't think so. I think it's going to get more interesting. If you watch the Facebook post where I said when I was at 25, we'll be down at 22. When we hit 23.5, we'll pause there for a second, go below that, and then 2,000. Then we'll find some support around. Was it 18,000 to 19,000? We hit 18,000, got up to 19,000, and I literally had people texting me and messaging me going, "Hey, I'm buying all this stuff." I'm like, "What are you doing? You're doing the exact opposite." But what's happening? There's that part of us that wants to win and thinks now's the time. And granted, I've been that person. Point being, what we want to do and use this as an opportunity, use this as leverage to say, wherever it is you have your compelling future, for you personally or your business or your community or your family, you want to come up with not just a path of what we call evolutionary growth. You want to have what? Multiple ways on how to do that. But you notice we're not waiting until the crisis. We're not there at point B. This is where, again, we want to anticipate and solve the challenges ahead of time. And so I think right now, a lot of people, when we're down here, it's just like trading. We always say when emotions, when we get super ecstatic, or as Uncle Greenspan used to say in the United States, irrational exuberance, or we get very fearful, when emotions go high, our intellect drops like a rock. And that's a bad combination for business, investing, and even leadership. I look at clients that have very successful businesses that are largely recession-proof, that can do very well, and they are freaking out. And I'm like, what are you doing? What's happening is they're letting the social proof, the social consciousness impact them versus saying, okay, let's keep our eye on the prize. What are the steps? And some businesses, I've been helping them bring a lot of them online. They're now finding where instead of going down, they can basically say, okay, we're not going to go here. We want to go, and here's our plan to get up there. But as long as we can blame, we get our fuel. Because remember, any deviation, I'll use this in a different color here. Any deviation here, this is painful energy. This is positive energy. We all need some kind of energy in our lives, usually through achievement experiences with others and so on. But if we can't do that, this is where a lot of people right now, they're connecting through this pain, through this hardship. And indulging other people in that. I've had people where and granted, and I'll be present with them. It's not like, come on, snap out of it. But it's okay, I get it. Some people, their entire revenue model, like the government just shut them down for who knows how long. They've got rent, they've got employees and so on. What do you say? And I said, you know what, man, I feel for you. And this will not last forever. How can we use this? Ask a better question. Because if you're focusing on everything that you don't want, you're focusing over here, you won't see what you do want over here. You won't see the opportunities on how, okay, great, we're going to start bringing our widget, make it available online, or start teaching online, or, they close our medical practice. So what do we do? How can we have doc in a box? Where basically maybe you can ship them out iPads, or now most people have phones. It's forcing people to be creative. When I usually work with doctors or psychiatrists and psychologists and, helping them, not just treat the symptoms all the time, but really help people move along that, that process. The number one thing I say is sometimes intentionally make your client uncomfortable. Rock their world a little bit, shake them out of again, it's like leverage essentially. Get them out of the comfort of, oh my gosh, this is so awful, and I know it so well, and they'll kind of hover around in here, versus asking, say, okay, great, I get that. What's your strategy for this? You can still do this. I'm not here to say you can't, but what's the strategy on the other side? And a lot of people that they won't want to focus on, or they'll argue for their right to stay here because this is their ultimate source of energy, especially if they can reminisce back to 2008, to the crash back then.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up that is they need to look at alternative ways to get their message out. And this period that we have, we don't know how long this is going to be, okay?
Right.
But it's the ultimate period to be doing this, right? It's the ultimate period to be re-gearing themselves up, refocusing, and really going back to the drawing board and looking at how can we reach our clients now in a different way.
Yeah, remember, we just say, let's say this is 2008. We've had some pullbacks, and this is almost like the stock market. You look at quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and so on, lowering interest rates and so on. We just got done with one of the most prosperous times, and all of a sudden that's gone in our minds. You look at from a political environment, at least in the States, our current president, where he was doing so well writing because of the economy, and the economy was doing well. And you watch what happened. As soon as he got elected, the economy took off. I mean, literally, like to the day. It wasn't that all of a sudden, okay, the results are in and all the companies got smarter and everyone bought more of their products and so on. It was built on what? The psychology, almost a mass hysteria psychology. And everything was going awesome. But now people are making it sound like, oh my gosh, the world is over. We just put ourselves back to where we were back in 2017. Point being, we can get out of that. But if we stay in the pain, or we want to say, oh my gosh, look at this and ask a better question, not what am I going to do? What am I going to do? We can say, okay, what really worked historically? Look back in the past and say, okay, what were some of the challenges that I've had in the past? And I was talking to a psychiatrist about this the other day, and they're like, I don't want to bring that up to my client. I said, no, not like over and over, week after week, but as part of an exercise, look back and ask them, so what are the horrible things you've been through, like in business or in life or whatever? And you start to activate or light up the wiring of these different times. Let's assume we're over here right now. But then what you do is you say, and you got 2 arms, 2 legs. Like, you're here. You made it. How did you do it? And what you'll do is the resourcefulness that kicks in on each of these times. Oftentimes, once we're out of the pain, most people stop, and their life kind of looks like this. They get energy, and then they get, how many of you, I mean, I'm sure we all know people where they have a problem, and then the problem is solved. Then a bad relationship, or bad boss, or whatever, and it's over and over again, because that's their strategy that they run to get the energy in their life. What we want to do is say, hey, let's go and tap into all of these. Those of you in the leadership in an environment that you and I spend a lot of our time, this is where you would do what? Anchoring, resource anchors. Go back and have them fully associate visually, auditorily, kinesthetically back to these times and really get it into their body and stack those together so that then it's okay, great. So let's look at the future. I don't know, fire it off, all that energy in the body and say, I know you don't think you can do it, and that's great. Never make them wrong. And I know you don't think you can, or I know you didn't think that you could. But right now, let's come up with 3 or 4 different ideas. You'd be surprised how resourceful people can get. Remember, I think Tony Robbins, I think is where I learned it. It's never lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. Yeah. And all I need is what? Within me now, is within my history now. The wiring's there because you did it, you made it. So I think a lot of people, where they've had challenges in their businesses, in their finances and so on, they're almost discounting those, because if you're feeling bad, you have to have a reason. Focus on what's wrong versus, okay, how can I, what do I need to do, and how can I pull from my strengths in the past?
So, question. I've got a few people asking a few questions, and I will go through them.
We're live. Sorry.
Well, there's loads of questions. So, a few things. I don't know how to ask this question, so I'm just going to ask it. So where are we in the spiral? If we were looking at spiral dynamics, yeah. Okay. Where are we at the moment? Where are we?
We are. Thank God I found this easel. I thought we were going to do Zoom for those of you that just kind of joined us. And it's like, no, we don't have, I can't do whiteboarding on whatever it is that we're using. So luckily I had an easel and I dug through my cases and I found some markers here.
Well, we're old school here.
Exactly. Hey, yeah, my hands are already getting marked up. So I'm getting flashbacks. So can you guys see that? Or you can't? Good.
Yep.
So again, I will say, again, I'll just a little bit of a recap. Life at the easiest levels, at the earliest levels, is very simple, one variable. Again, it's like babies, very animalistic, and so on. Essentially, life equals an additional variable, an additional level of resourcefulness, an additional level of wiring within the nervous system, of potential in terms of potential thinking systems. They're always there, but they're not activated. As we grow, the life conditions outside of us demand that the mind capacities will grow. Those of you in the Robbins environment, Tony calls it the blueprint. It's the same thing. Our internal thinking mechanisms of how to interact with the outside world. So let's just say,
so basically you're doing A plus B plus C plus D plus.
Yes, in case you can't see my hieroglyphics here, yes. So what I'm doing is I'm adding one additional variable at each level. And at level 8, life equals, it's more of an exchange. And the reason why I bring this up is, at each thinking system, there's an expressed self and denied self. I look at it as creating energy and sacrificing energy. So the odd numbers, we create energy at 1, 3, 5, 7, and 8, as you'll see in a second, is more of an exchange. At level 2, we sacrifice energy. I'll give a brief synopsis of each of the levels in a second. So at level 2, we realize we need somebody else. We need our tribe. Now, the interesting thing is, this is where, at level 1, this is where you see people and they'll be sleeping on the streets. They'll do number 1 or number 2 right there on the sidewalk. This is where they realize they need somebody else. They need a tribe. They need a sense of belonging, a sense of connectedness, immediate family, closest family. After a while, or the tribe, after a while, they'll say, screw the tribe. I'm in it for me. What about me? And this energy wakes up again inside. And so this is where they'll say, express self, the heck with anybody else. And it's not always negative. Sometimes people in the world, in the industry, they make it out to be a negative thing. Oftentimes it is negative. But it's also, a dear friend of mine that's a doctor, we were at a restaurant one time and he sees a woman giving her kid like Splenda or something that's just not good for you. And he went over, his eyes were like welling up. He's like, ma'am, I'm so sorry for interrupting. Please, you can't feed that to your kid. I'm a doctor. Here's what's inside of that, yada, yada, yada. And I'm there going like, oh, shit, what are you doing? But that's that express yourself without a whole lot of sensory acuity of the 4, which is the structure, the rules. Basically, it's, at times it can be rules for rules' sake. This is what we call power in the absolute. This is all about structure. But after a while, though, remember, where are you going to get your energy? If you've only come up through here, you'll still get your energy through level 3. After a while, this is where, what if I can live life not by breaking the rules, but using the rules? See, that variable is here. Now that's where we have the entrepreneurial variable. This is where a lot of people, they're achieving, everything's going great and so on. And if you find people that are solidly, authentically, or we call nodally, achieving a level 5, there's no need for them to go and get cheap energy here by being a bully or what have you. Why? Because they're getting the same energy in a far more elegant or sophisticated way. And after a while, we've all seen where people, they'll achieve and they go, is this all there is? And they go very philanthropic. You look at, the Bill Gateses of the world. You look at a lot of the Hollywood stars and so on, where they'll go and realize, gosh, it's more than just me in this industry or the movies or the money. It's about giving back. And then you have a different rung of the spiral, which is, again, of the high level here, which is more, I want to achieve, and in order for me to achieve, somebody else has got to lose. Here you realize, God, the game was such a waste of time. We're all one. It's all the community. And we see a lot of this activation happening on some levels. But some people, they go and they'll give, but they don't take care of themselves. And they vacillate or do what we call crazy eights between these two. But then you have some folks that realize I achieve through helping others achieve. And then you have folks where it's like, we're all one. Everything has a higher purpose. The Mother Teresa's of the world, Mahatma Gandhi's, and so on. reason I bring that up here is under stress, people will revert to easier thinking systems, to earlier thinking systems. Because you can look at this going, man, remember back when we were young? You Saturday morning, you turn on the telly and you say, okay, you watch Bugs Bunny, and Wile E. Coyote dropping another anvil on the Roadrunner, right? Those are your big things. Do we watch that or go play, cops and robbers? Nowadays, life is a lot more complex. We have more ways on how to screw up our experience of the world outside. But we also have many more ways on how to solve it. But if we have not conditioned each of these awakened thinking systems, we go, I can't solve this. Like somebody gives you a minus 500 here, minus 500,000. You can't make it equal your life condition. So what happens? You simplify, and this is where people get angry. But what we see was really cool, though. You see, right now, a lot of people, they're staying in tribe. I was with my little shopping cart because I went to the market the other day, and I'm going through, and people are just nicer. Yeah. It's like the eye contact, because it has that, we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And some people, though, they go down to the basic of, it's like, when I would go, if I had toilet paper there and I saw a little old lady at the toilet paper aisle looking around like, what am I going to do? I'd be one of the first person. A lot of us would, to say, here, ma'am. And I know somebody who can make it for you. I mean, it's just, we want to help out our tribe. This is where the bonding, it's called the bonding order. This is where the bonding comes in. Here's the question. Where do we get our fuel, though? Because here's the deal. This living notally in level 2 is a great feeling, but there's no energy there. So we have to get it through, I always say, where do they get their gas? Some people, they'll get it by being, with the hoarding is level 3. That's express self. I want this. And literally, I watched a video, I think it was in Australia. Sorry for the Aussies. But there was a video it was like on the news.
We have Aussies online, by the way.
What?
We have our Aussie family online.
Hey. And literally, you saw this one woman, first I see this brawl. I was like, oh my gosh, what are they doing over a thing of toilet paper? And then somebody on their phone pans over. No, it wasn't a thing. She had like a cart full, mount toilet paper roll. And this other woman clearly just wanted something. And, just wanted one. And this woman just got violent. So she may have thinking, I'm achieving this, or these are my rules. You can't have it. I got this. I won. I was here first. And what happened? This, all of a sudden, they couldn't compete at the same level. So that's where the violence happened. When you see people, they'll be, talking smack, as we used to call it back in the old days. And then all of a sudden, when somebody first takes a punch, it's I can't outsmart them. So I'll devolve to an earlier thinking system. We see this, I'll be very delicate here. We see this in other areas where this person really can't do this because they've broken these rules, because they're not of this, of this ancestry, or they're not a citizen or whatever, or where's the birth certificate kind of a thing. Because if they don't think they can compete here, they'll go get their fuel here and weaponize the 4. You see this a lot. This is disgraceful. This is wrong. This is when instead of getting caught up in the emotions of what the symptoms are, of what it's equaling, we have to look inside, and we want to ask ourselves, especially when you see people now, and saying, which thinking system is governing this behavior? I look at each of these as a different person inside. You have the very simple, where level 1 is, I'm alive. I can poop and back. I don't even need toilet paper. There's a leaf over there. I don't even care. That part of us doesn't really care. But that part of us here is like, sometimes level 2 is a very frightening world. This is where the boogeyman, when we were kids, the boogeyman was born on level 2. You see little kids now, and kids, when you go up and, hey, how you doing? You see them, they kind of hide their head, inside of mom or dad's shoulder, because they're saying, hey, chief, protect me. Scarcity is highly activated in level 2. So we see people where they would ordinarily be functioning at these higher thinking systems. When we can't make this side of the equation equal this side of the equation, we have to make it balance. Otherwise, and again, you've been around, I've worked with people in the past where they've been in self-induced comas. One person was mugged because something happened. He was, probably achieving, 5 or 7 up in this range. It was such a traumatic experience that he could not have the 2 equal, and literally devolved, and not just wallowing in it, his body shut down. His brain was like, I can't. And That's where we have self-induced comas oftentimes, or trauma, shock, we'll call it, or they'll just be despondent. They'll be talking in tongues and things like that. Instead of labeling, like, oh my God, they're nuts, you want to look and say, okay, where have they been normally? So you take a detailed personal history. Where are they normally functioning? Where are they now? And which tribe member, as I call it a tribe inside, which tribe member is having an issue? So instead of like, let's just, sedate this, or let's have a drug for this, or what have you. And I am all for pharmacological approaches, if nothing else works.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? If this type of thing doesn't work. But here, you just need to have an individual or nodal conversation with each thinking system. And so if you look at it, when there's a challenge or upset, this is the kind of the identity of each thinking system. So let's say like level 5. If they right now they can't achieve through this, they may realize that they go back over here, if they end up at point F, they've just kind of gotten rid of the pain, but it doesn't mean they've really used it to grow to a new level. And so for some people, they're like, Steve, you need to be drawing this like 20 feet underground here. Well, again, if I put a post here, and a rubber band with a little marble right here, if I pulled it down a few centimeters, the marble kind of right up the rubber band. If I pull it down, a little bit further, it might pop up in the air. If I pull it down right here, it's not just going to go up here. I'm going to put a hole in the ceiling. So if you look at it, again, this is reality. If you look at it, this pain is so awful that we're in my business, my life, my health, my finances, my whatever it is. Instead of looking like, why me, going like, God, life, universe, whatever, thank you for this. Yeah, it sucks. It hurts. Nobody enjoys this pain. If they do, we don't want to know. But in terms of nobody wants to be in pain, this is where if you look at how can I use this? And the first thing to do, and especially for coaches and so on, when your client, you need to understand, where's your client's identity? That's the first thing. Because if you try to shift, if their identity is my life, because I've lost my retirement, or again, I went through the dot-com bust. I went through the boom and the bust. Literally, I'd be out and I'd be with a friend of mine, and we're like, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? You don't even need to say what happened. They would usually, if they committed suicide, oftentimes it's an identity issue, because they'd say, I am not worthy. I'm not worth living. I don't deserve to be. Then their belief system. The challenge is, when you're focusing here, there's no association to this whatsoever. And so the first thing is not to say, well, here, we're just going to take these steps, because again, if their identity has dropped down, let's say to here, these steps will feel incongruent with how they define themselves. No, I'm a loser. I lost my family's fortune. I made these bad investments. I bought this stock when it was going down. Some of you know who you are. Instead, going, you know what? That was a decision that I made. I made a mistake, or I should have made a better decision, but I'm still me. I'm still who I am. I think getting people to disassociate from what's going on outside of them and focus on their identity. Because if you help them realize that, yeah, you know what? Right now, this is my experience of life, but my identity is still solid, or because of this, I know I'm going to grow. What if their identity rises, and their identity is, let's say, here at one stage, or on one coaching call for the coaches or therapists that are, if you're watching, or you have them hold their identity up here. Now, this sure will feel very incongruent, but they have something to look forward to. That's what we call it the compelling future. It's, I know that this is part of the journey to get there. And man, that rubber band, we are pulling it, and we're really stretching that down there. But I know we'll get up there. But they've also got to have the plan and the strategy on how to do it. Not just, I'm just going to hope and wait, or have a government bailout, or get a check from the government. I'm not against it, but in the sense of what can they do? Why? So it's a part of it. Sorry to be so verbose there, but a little bit of passion about it right now.
Are you up for a couple of questions?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
So if anybody has a question for Steve, please put it in the message box here. I've got so many to scroll down. So just if you could just put your message, your question up here, while I'll ask a question of myself, actually. So if you have a question, please write it down here. This is Steve here, Steve Linder, a genius in human psychology and how to help shift perspective and perception, and how you can really help yourself through the coming months by changing, like we talked
and help
about.
and show others how you did it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So actually, my question to you is, if we, if we're looking at the spiral dynamics, if we're looking at the levels of thinking, and we're trying to identify the level of thinking that is producing the behavior, how do we shift that? How do we make them shift from a lower level to something that is going to enhance their life?
Well, you're not going to like this answer. You can't, because you can't make anybody do anything.
Okay.
I say that because it's, and again, I don't mean to sound like a Tony disciple. Obviously, I have the world's utmost respect for him, and he's incredibly accurate when he says all you need is within you now. In the sense of, from a geeky science perspective, all we need, all the thinking systems we need, are all in us. But what if this is all zeroed out right now? Say if we're having a challenge and we're in 3, so these basically have a very simple way of processing. These are all zeroed out. That's really our experience at level 3 thinking. For people to say, listen, stop, you got to get to that next level. You got to awaken that next thinking system and so on. That's saying, hey, so right now you're getting what you want when you want it. No, you're going to sacrifice the rules to the authorities and, the system and so on. They're like, ain't going to happen. Why? Because their brain's going to give up my energy that I can make whenever I want by doing whatever I want. How to help people do that step by step. It's kind of a bit of a coaching model as well. Is you've got to help them show a ladder. So really what you want to do is you want to help them get to the next thinking system of the same energetic charge. Some people, if they're stuck in 4, well, I don't want this energy because remember, I think Mark Twain said it best, and this is part of Chris Cohen and Natasha Dorovics and Claire Graves' original content before other people learned it and done other things with it, but this is from the source. You can't process things beyond where you're currently operating. So if they're nodal, say if they're in 4, they don't know what 5 is. They just see the energy and like, I remember that from when my C was very active. So that they're going to take advantage of us. They're going to screw us over somehow. And we have that mindset. I mean, we have this in the States. I don't know if it's the same thing where you look at kids nowadays. Kids are being raised by their video, by their iPhones, their tablets, and so on. Our school system largely is still very level 4, very rules driven, and so on. Mm-hmm. So when kids are showing that entrepreneurial spirit, that curiosity, what if we can do this? What happens? The system, the force is, no, that's wrong. So if we go and we, through therapy or, pharmacologically, we sedate that variable, now we have a perfectly functioning level 4 again. Mm-hmm. A little zombie-ish, but at least they're functional. But if we can help guide them, if we can help strengthen that 4, I say this because right now when people are in that hoarding mentality, are they thinking consequences? Are they thinking, and you would hope not, but you never know, where it's like, hey, ma'am, with the 80 packages of toilet paper, in your 3 big carts, there could be a little old lady who has, health conditions, and she's going to be coming in tomorrow morning, and she's going to need the toilet paper. And if you're okay, I don't want it, but if you're okay with her looking and going, I don't know what I'm going to do. I might soil myself. If you're okay with that, hey, have at it. Mm-hmm. But that's why I think the energy needs to be around getting out of that 3 there and really rejoining as a tribe, strengthening this. So this is so strong that this will serve as an underpinning to what helps say that 4, we need to follow the rules. When you see these kids where they're saying, oh, young people aren't affected by this. And you have the, the news shots of all these young people out on the beaches and all that. Like, I don't care if I get it. I bet, says nobody who actually has it. In terms of their, level 3s, they think they're invincible. So the point being, helping people get the structure. This is the time where a lot of businesses realize that they had no business systems. They had no business structures. There was so much water in the financial pool, in the economic pool, that we could be wasteful and so on. But now that the water level is lower, the blood in the water is your own blood. That's the result of things of thinking systems or lack of systems that should have been there a long time ago. Most companies can do really well in an up market. The key is, how do they do in a down market, and what's been their experience of that? So I think right now a lot of people, they're fearful of the lower thinking systems. I think what we actually need to do is help them get clear on, when this is all over, however deep it goes, when this is over, what's life going to be like? Tell me about it. Describe it. And you're asking questions. So, how are you going to see yourself? What are people, when you walk into the office or amongst your mates or your friends, like, oh my gosh, there's Geeta. What are they going to say about how, oh my gosh, she's so strong. She did this. She helped so many people, yada, yada, yada. What happens? You can start to have them associate to it and create an IR, an internal representation, which is a combination of what they see, hear, feel, and smell and taste. But basically, have them create an IR, have them fully associate to what that's going to be like, and then ask the question, how did you do it?
Yeah.
And they'll actually, oftentimes, when you take them out of the problem and presuppose the success, they'll be so much more resourceful. You're there just to guide them. So that's when you said, how can you make them? I don't make anybody do anything. I simply ask questions.
Yeah. So I've got a question from TJ.
Yeah. Hey, TJ.
So what is your best advice for the grads to actually go out and help teach this right now and help the community and actually help in a leadership perspective as well? Because the style of leadership is going to be different now, right?
Right.
So if you were to summarize, what are some of, she said top 5 things. So
yeah, I might do more or less, but in a nutshell, and it's funny because what's happening right now is what we've been talking about for how many years now?
15 for me, 15 and a bit.
A few years, yeah. It's just, when I think about it, it's like, oh my God, we've been doing it for decades. The best thing to do is, number one, align where people are. The worst thing that when I avoided learning NLP in the beginning because I saw people that were using it as like, I'm going to mind melt them, I'm going to hypnotize you or do whatever, put them at the effect. That's what made me avoid it for many, many years. I think the biggest thing to do is, number one, be present, align with them. They'll term them aligning and gaining rapport with them. Not like, oh my God, it sucks. And you're there with, snot rockets coming out of your nose with them. But go, man, I remember back in 2008, God, I was doing the same thing. And like, oh, but my business is failing. I said, yeah, my business actually failed, or my business almost failed as well. But here's what I found though, is I knew that it wouldn't last forever. And what I started to do is I started to say, when this thing turns around, however it's going to happen, God, universe, government, whatever, when it does, what are going to be some of those steps on that's going to help get us out of it? Have them focus on the other side, because here's what happens. As long as, color choice here. So, and if anyone's watching who's been gone through, the hardcore spiral dynamics, the Gragian theory from the textbook. It's funny. I had Natasha Todorovic, brilliant mind. If you want to learn spiral dynamics, National Value Center, Natasha Todorovic. She and Chris Cohen are the ones who created the colors and the whole 9 yards. Claire Gray stipulated that the identity. Remember, in my old class, I used to always write. Here's the identity down here. That's when the identity shifts. And some of you, if you're watching from you got trained years and years ago, or 15 years ago. I'm not going to say I was wrong. I wasn't clear. Because here's what I realized. Where I used to say the identity shifts right here. No, because some people, they go and they come back up and they just get comfortable again. And again, I can tell you that I'd say 90% of the people in the world, they just want to come back and just be comfortable again. They want to go back and just kind of run the same patterns over and over again. I wish more people would say, okay, how can we use this to become better? How can we use this to add more value type of a thing? So here's our old identity. This is the possibility of the new identity. So you have to have your client or yourself look at, okay, let me define this new identity now. How am I going to show up? How is my family, my kids, my business partners, my clients, and so on? The identity doesn't really shift until here's the new identity. Once they're in this new identity, now they're doing things that are beyond the original identity. But it's still new. It's still, remember the stages of learning. You're still having to what conscious competence. You're still having to condition it in. When it becomes solidly who you are is when you reach this level over here. This is just who I am now. You know, I'm smoking, I'm doing whatever, and I shouldn't because I'm going to have a lung, pop out or whatever. This is where, if you're still messing around with this over here, you have no association to this over here. Maybe a dream or something you hope might happen. So I think, back to TJ's question, helping people get really clear on this, because when you know what you don't want, you'll naturally be pushed away from it. And when you know what you do want, you'll be actually drawn towards it. Most people, it's like a bug to a light. They're in this pain right now, either financially or emotionally or toilet paper wise, and they're going, ow, ow, hot, 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 and they're just trying to avoid it. It's like a mosquito in the middle of the night. And we have our mosquitoes here in Oregon. They're the size of small dogs. And instead of going into the flame and burning, it gets too hot and they go away until it gets cooler, but they still are focusing on the same thing. So when you say, we don't want to lose more clients, I had a client today, actually. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. And I looked at some of the, and if you're watching, again, your name is John. And I'm looking at it, I said, John, your language is so scarcity driven. You'll actually, you'll retard, not the horrible slang sense of the word, but it's like a fire retardant. You're going to retard your growth. You're going to retard new clients from coming and seeing you because your focus is here. You need to be focused on this. When I focus, and is that the red curtain behind you or no?
Yes, red curtain, yeah.
So notice, if I focus on that, now everyone who's on the phone, they're looking at it also. And you're doing your best not to turn around and look because you already know it's red. Point being, if you focus on it, everyone else will focus on it. Yeah. That can be phenomenal. Or if you're leading a team and you're focusing on, here's all these problems, look at what the news is saying, and da-da-da-da-da-da. If you focus just on that, yes, you're going to live it. So from a leadership perspective, I'd say focus on what you want first and focus on what you don't want. Ignite the pain of this, make them uncomfortable so that the painful leverage breaks the gravitational pull of the problem. Whenever I teach leverage, if sometimes it's like, hey, link massive pleasure if they change to massive pain if they don't. Totally accurate. More specifically is if you have, say, 1 unit of pain here, you need to link 3 units of pleasure. Otherwise, 1 unit of pain, 1 unit of pleasure, you get back to this scenario. You want to have it where you stack the cool. So you have them fully associated to this. Now, the pain, and you make it so hot. It's like if the little bugs are going around, you make it into a flamethrower. They'll be like, oh my God, I got to get the heck out of here. And when you've shown them what they want, or help them find what they want, I should say, they'll be drawn towards that, pushed away from that. So the pain is what breaks the gravitational pull of the thinking system, of focusing on it, and then they'll be drawn towards that. So to summarize that, so to be so verbose there, back to TJ's question, you want to, number one, help them understand their identity before this started, help them understand that they've overcome things like this before, and get curious. I'm like, so how did you overcome that? In 2008, what happened there? And you got it. Like, you made it through. They didn't eat you. That's my acid test. If this doesn't work, can anybody eat you? No. Okay, so you'll live. You'll make it through this. With that being the common platform at the bottom of that, let's look and see how can we maybe leverage some of the strategies you clearly already have inside. How can we bring those to bear now? Because strategies are what? Cross-contextual.
Yeah.
How can we apply that in a different area? And then also, how can they have the compelling features so real for them? So every night, or as a parent, imagine saying, when this is not just over, but think of how much better we're going to be because of this. So I think that'd be one of the biggest things. And then, and then again, the new identity. And I'd say the biggest thing is how to help other people with it. Because if I said, Gita, I'm going to teach you how to sew, what's the presupposition, as clearly inaccurate as it is? What's the presupposition?
That I don't know how to sew.
Yeah, true. And what's another even more false presupposition? That I somehow know how to sew because I don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you help other people, it presupposes that your own needs are being met, that you already have that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, hopefully that answers TJ's question. Questions.
What process, so this is Daniele, what process can we use to identify more options to achieve the outcome? What questions should we ask ourselves?
Yeah. It kind of goes back.
Do you want me to repeat that, or did you get it?
It kind of goes in terms of how to identify other avenues and how to get there. Yeah. I'd say, okay, great. That's one. I would use remnants of the New Orleans flexibility drill, and say, how would this person solve it? How would Donald? Can't delete that, can we? How would any of the guys from Shark Tank? How would they solve that? How would some of the sharpest business minds? How would how would
Elon Musk. Yeah.
What?
Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, how would Elon Musk do it? Yeah. Assuming he already hasn't. So the point being, basically step into other people's models of the world, and here's why. Because in everybody's model of the world, Elon has this also. You have this also. I have this also. This line, technically, I was talking to a group last weekend. This line, what keeps us here is past grads. This. We call it the critical faculty. It's a barrier. So right now, the majority of the people, they don't see this. They don't even believe it's there. They're looking at this going, it's like that scene from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade when he's at that abyss and his, the Holy Grail's, across the way and his dad's dying because he got shot by the Nazis. And he's like, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And then the guy yelled out, hurry, Indy. Why? That was the leverage. Like, get to the damn Grail, else your dad's going to die kind of a deal. But when people have that belief system, so the critical faculty, also known as the barrier, also known as a belief system of I can't do that. Like when I started my company, the one that I sold to E-Trade, everyone's belief, we can't do that. Wall Street's been trying for 85 years, billions of dollars. That's just the belief. I talked to my team and we said, imagine we already did it. Let's look back and what's the structure? How did we actually do it? Once we got beyond that, this was simple. It took us about, I think it was like 7 days. So, but most people, what's going to keep them there, and back to Danielle, the first thing you have to help avoid is, let me use the red because it should be in red, is the graffiti that they write on the outside known as, here's a story of why I can't do it. Because everyone in my industry, all these 5 people went bankrupt, and I'm going to go bankrupt too. That's the story to justify the belief system that they can't do it. That's the mental barrier because the critical fact that there's so many voices. The mob inside, I can tell you right now, the 5 of us inside is like, we can do this. We can find a way how to do it. If that part wins, or we can, we're going to find a way to do it, and we want to show other people how to do it also. When these more advanced thinking systems win, everyone else wins in the equation. All the rest of the tribe wins because imagine these are basically all people on a bus. When the 7 is driving and they get to where they're going, everyone on the bus wins. Yeah. However, if we have a belief system that we can't do this, it's wrong to prosper when everyone else is suffering. If you have a belief system like that, and you're going to want to have somebody, again, where's the energy going? Well, if you're living here, the gas station where you go is here, where I call it drinking buddies. When the 3 and the 4 become drinking buddies, the 3 is like, yeah, we can't do it, screw you. Because the 3 fears shame. Number one thing, the 3 is absolutely hates public humiliation. So if they want to achieve something, the 4, but what if we can't do it? And what will people think of us if we failed? And so this will keep us almost down in this area, and what we'll go into blame of, we'll be at the effect. It's not our fault. It's China's fault. China. It's this fault. It's the Fed's fault. It's the whatever fault. What you want to do is, again, look and see where do I want to get who do I want to drive my bus? Where do I want to get my fuel? I'd recommend have a strong 2, strong 4 systems-wise frameworks and so on, but really awaken the 5. I mean, it's again, if you look at, I was talking about this with a group the other day, or I guess a week ago now. If you look at Tony's first book, do you remember what it was called?
Is it A Note to a Friend, or is it Awaken the Giant?
No, that's the book I'd give out on airlines. I'd sneak those into the airline pocket seat of the seat next to me, and then pretend I didn't know anything about it when the guy opens it up, and I look over and go, oh, good book. But no, it was actually Awaken the Giant Within. Yeah. Came out, back in the 80s. Think about it. in the 80s, it was very four, very, 9 to 5, very structured and so on. And what they're sacrificing the energy. Tone, I don't think he realized what he did, which is so brilliant. What he did, he's saying awaken the giant within. What he's basically saying is, hey, the part of you that when you're here, remember when you go into a new nodal, you have to reject the previous thinking system in order to take the energy from here to put it into here. But that giant, again, that source of energy is still there. So what Tony was really saying is, here the strat. If you read the book, he was really saying, here's how you can achieve by following these guiding principles of Jim Rohn and so on. So don't shut this energy down. This energy is what's fueling all these other systems beyond that.
Yeah.
But channel it, harness it, don't squelch it.
Yeah.
And that's, again, for parents, if you have a kid or, where there's, oh my gosh, they're so rambunctious, they're this or they're that. Again, not giving medical advice. Really talk to, the prescribing doctor or a good psychologist or psychiatrist and say, what's really going on? Is it possible that child has so much energy here that if the school system or traditional thinking can't process it, don't kill that off. Because what you're really doing is you're killing the energy here. And granted, you'll have a perfectly functional, very calm, very quiet child, but you've also kind of neutered part of their potential by making them wrong.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And I think, what I got from that last bit, which is a really crucial bit, is that all the levels of thinking are important.
Yes. There's no better or worse.
Yeah, and to use it wisely to actually move up the level.
Yeah. Keep on going. I'll show you something. I can't post it online, but here's an example. So I caught an armed intruder on my property a few weeks ago, as one does.
Yeah.
And I found my handgun in my storage, but I thought, I don't need that right now. I'm not going to do anything with that. Let's see, where was it here?
So we don't do guns here in the UK, okay?
Yeah. Don't get me started. No, that's a good thing, by the way. Here it is. Let me pause it for a second. And so for me, all of a sudden, my Ring security. This is not a commercial for Ring, but you guys have rings in the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, so my Ring goes off, and I just got done working on my new place, and I saw my light go off. I'm like, yeah. Then I turned my light off, and then I see this little light bouncing around. I'm like, no. And so of course, again, and my handgun's over there, but I'm also wondering what's going on. And so I went over, and I had my little tactical flashlight that usually goes with the gun. And I don't know if I can hold it on the screen here or not. I'm going to mute it before he says his name. But listen, most people know me. I'm kind of the goofy tribe member who tries to do some cool stuff. But listen to the voice, though. I don't know if you can see it over here. Oops, where's the camera? There it is.
Yeah.
Here.
What's your name? Jacob, what's your last name? What's in your hands?
Whoops.
Who's with you? Drop it in your hands now. Hands behind your heads. Do you have any ID on you? What's your first name? Jacob, what's your last name? What's your date of birth? What are you doing here?
So point being, you could tell that's not how I normally am. But what happened? So I'm ordinarily over here. All of a sudden, somebody's threatening me. He had to end up having a knife on him as well. And all of a sudden, under the pressure, I went right down into level 3 with the 4. That's also why I brought out my phone, because he could say, that I threatened to kill him or whatever. So I had easy access to this, because here's the problem. A lot of people, when they make their 3 wrong, they lose access to the resources contained within that. That's such a key thing. So many people, especially in society, if we overvalue the 4, we neuter our own 3. We basically have it to where you can't do that.
Yeah.
Again, that's like my, the pissed off voice. I think there's like a handful, maybe one extra finger, of times in my life where I've been that rough. And it was because I realized I need to have a strong 4, overwhelm them with the 3, that, hey, because if I start to negotiate with them, and at one point he tried to explain, like, stop, we're walking this way, we're waiting for the sheriff. The point being is that because the thinking systems get along, they can work with each other.
Yeah.
So what piece of advice, and I think back to TJ's question, I'd say for everybody right now, most people, they're getting time at home. They get to unplug from work. And some people are like, but I need the money. Take it for what it's worth. You got compensated financially for whatever it is that you do, and that's awesome. And right now, because of the life condition, you're not able to enrich yourself in the same way from the financial perspective. But you can get something 10 times more powerful. Is, look at this model and say, let me look at the tribal part of me. Let me look at the part of me that is the power God, and have I made it right? How can I actually nurture that part? Not to let it drive the bus. One of my attorneys like, well, you could have shot him there. I mean, he was kind of kidding, but it was apparently true. But I'm like, but that's not me. But again, if you make that wrong, again, imagine if he did whatever. That part, it's like when they fight to defend their family. You want to make sure that each thinking system is nurtured, because the more access you have, remember, if you have these 8 different ways, let's just say, of how to interact with the life experience, you have 8 different ways, 8 different thinking. It's like having 8 friends who know you really well since you were born, 8 different ways of how to figure out how to get here. Most people, if we're arrested in one thinking system where we can have some flexibility, but we stop at a certain point, or if we're closed in one, then we're guaranteed to have stress. So I look at it, it's unfortunate what's going on right now, and from an economy perspective, the virus thing, and I'm looking at what can we do to, number one, keep this from happening in the future. What can we do? How can we learn from this to make us better as a society because of it? Make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So,
well, Steve, this, you've just given us you've enriched us, really.
Oh God, it's been 90 minutes. Jeez. Is it really been 90 minutes?
It's been an hour and 7 minutes.
Oops. Okay.
So this is the thing with Steve, you just cannot stop listening to him. He's amazing. Thank you so much for enriching us. And Steve, if you want to know more about what Steve does, it's the strategic brain. I'd
say follow me on Facebook right now.
Yeah.
Again, we're going to be doing something. I'm going to do a run through with some really close friends tomorrow on the economy. Sunday, right now, because so many people. Again, I'd say go back and read the Facebook posts about. I had the charts. Again, I can't show it on this with the software or what have you, but right now we're stabilized right now as we thought we would be. If we fall below this level, again, we're not down here yet. We're kind of like midway there. Dow 15,000 in the U.S. is a possibility, and some people are like, no, I don't want it, and a lot of people are thinking they can lose a lot of money. Some people I don't want to short. You don't have to short. There are good. Some people I watch literally. I have family members who are like, Jane, what are you doing? You can keep from. You lost so much money. Why don't you listen to me? But they know me ever since I was a little kid. And I said, there are exchange traded funds that you can buy that when the market goes down, these things go up exponentially. You don't have the risk of shorting. You don't have all the loss. But what happens? I don't know that. I don't know. And they try to stay here. And I watch literally, it's like watching your friends literally throw themselves off the financial cliff. And you're thinking, there's the escalator right there. You just have to think differently about it and not believe all the talking heads and pundits you see on TV. So I'd say, again, I'll put something up probably tonight about that. But I think the biggest thing is just remember, we will get through this. And we have the choice. We can go through it and be scarred, or we can get through this and go beyond and champion this with one heck of a strategy of exactly how we did it, that we can take this and give to other people later on when they're having a personal challenge. That, I think, is going to be the coolest part of this as well. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
So thank you so much again. And yes, please follow Steve. He's doing some amazing work online with the markets and sharing his amazing wisdom on what you can do. What's your next step? Yeah. Please, guys, life is not going to be like it was before a week ago, 2 weeks ago. You really need to think about you know, what's going to happen a year ahead, and start planning now. Start the progress now. Start the work now. And you know, in your compelling future in a year's time, can be something that is something you can look back and say, wow, I did that.
Create it now.
Yeah, create it now.
Yeah.
So Steve, thank you so much.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
We're here anytime you want to share your wisdom, we're here. And yeah.
Well, now I know how to use a new streaming service, so that'll be. I'll probably be calling you going, Geeta, there's something going on here. Show me how to work this.
I'm not the geek. You're the geek.
You out geeked me on this one, so I just signed up for Zoom, so I now have my own Zoom thing. So I'll be doing again. Also, if we have grads on the line, also I apologize that I've been busy with that whole flood thing, but I'm making progress, and I definitely will be reaching out, because again, it's so funny. Geeta really pointed out that even amongst from the hierarchy of relationships, you have your cabinet, your peers, your friends, acquaintances, and strangers, that I've even neglected this because I've been so focused on following the rules of of an insurance case and all that kind of stuff that I neglected this, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to be reconnecting with our grads as well, because again, even there's some new distinctions some of you saw on somewhere this right here in terms of from one thinking that's brand new. So somewhere, if you're watching, put that in my notes. But that again, I want to make sure you guys have all the latest distinctions as well, because we can get through this as a team, as a tribe. And the biggest thing is, even if you're not familiar with me, if you're the first person or you stumbled on this thinking it was something else, if you learned even one thing from this that could help somebody else, just go help one person, and it's all worthwhile. So,
thank you, Steve. We love you. Until the next time. All right.
Yes.
All right. Take care. Love.
Take care, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Oh, I'm trying to use my mouse.